I'm James Demer, the audio nomad, and today we have a very special guest. It's Mark Ryan of SuperReview. We're just going to get right into it. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining us here on the Linsoul channel.
Of course.
Really happy to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. What are you? So you've got looks like some Sennheiser headphones on right now.
Oh yeah, the classic HT600 in marble attire. That's the best one.
Oh yeah, the marble. That was like a really rare version, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was rare. They just stopped doing it maybe 5-ish years ago. So now all the new ones are gray, which looks cool, but it doesn't look cool. Well, this actually looks kind of awful, I think, but I like it in like a, kind of the same way I bought a pair of like old Oakley sunglasses because they just look kind of cringe, but it's also like kind of cool in that sense. So
yeah, it's everything kind of comes around again, like bell bottoms and maybe Jello. I don't know. Well, that's sort of the, so you've been doing this a really long time. You've had those headphones for a while. I'm guessing you probably bought them new. You did your first review, I want to say close to 8 years ago.
Almost exactly 8 years ago. Yeah, I think it was September in 2017.
So I watched what might have been one of your first videos. It was on some shocks, like the bone conduction. No, it was actually good. You talked about riding a motorcycle. Do you still ride a motorcycle?
I do. Not very often anymore. I used to ride it more when I had a commute, but I've been working from home since COVID, basically. So for the past 5 years, I haven't had a commute. So my motorcycle basically brings me into the city. So I live outside of San Francisco. Driving into San Francisco sucks. So if I have to go into the city to get my haircut, which is why I go into the city, I ride my motorcycle. So yeah, it basically gets pulled out once every 6-ish weeks.
What do you pay for a haircut in San Francisco?
Oh, I don't want to say it here. I'll just say this. I pay more than I would normally, but the reason I go into San Francisco for it is my friend cuts my hair and he's a barber in San Francisco.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fun. So you kind of make a little like a adventure out of it every 6 weeks.
Yeah. If it was just up to me, I'd probably just like go around the corner and spend like $15 on, I don't care what I look like, but my friend's fancy, so.
Your audience certainly cares. I noticed that you had 288,000 views of that first video, at least the first video that I could find, 288,000 views. What does it feel like to know that you're affecting 288,000 people's, decision on whether they purchase a product or not? That's a lot of pressure, Mark.
I definitely don't think of it that way. So I guess I don't feel it so much as pressure. But especially,
how do you think about it?
Well, I mean, especially actually with a product like the shocks, and I know like we're on an audiophile channel, right? We're mostly audiophiles. This is not an audiophile product, but like real talk, this is my most used headphone. Like,
that's wild. Like, so like the video that I looked at is probably close to 8 years old, and you just picked those up off your desk.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably a newer version of the one that I reviewed 8 years ago, but I have, I don't know, like 5 or 6 different pairs of these things around my house because I love these things. And I remember when I reviewed this, like there was not a whole lot of content on the internet about these things. So every time I saw somebody wearing them in public, I always kind of wondered, like, there's actually like a decent chance this person saw my video on YouTube. Nowadays, I don't think that's the case because now they like are big with runners and cyclists, which I'm not. I don't exercise with these things really. So they have kind of like their own niche market. I no longer feel like, there's a good chance this person watched my video, but at one point I did. And I don't know, it's interesting.
Did you find a product that didn't have a review and you thought to yourself, I'm going to do a review on this? Or were you really into audio and then looked for something to review?
Sure. I mean, if we want to go back to kind of, and we're talking about the beginning of my YouTube channel, the name of the channel, right? It's called SuperReview, has nothing to do with audio because I had no idea what I wanted it to be about, to be honest. Like I just had the idea that I wanted to do superficial reviews. That's what the super stands for.
Oh.
Some people think that it's supposed to be like superstar. It's not superstar. It's just super with an asterisk because it's superficial.
Right.
But my idea was I would just, my idea was I would just review random things that I bought on Amazon. And I was interested in Bluetooth headphones at the time because 8 years ago, you think about 8 years ago, that was around the time like iPhone 7 was coming out and Apple was getting rid of the headphone jack. And I was like, okay, I have to get into Bluetooth headphones now. And there's so many out there. How do I make a decision about one of them? Well, I can just kind of make a YouTube channel and have an excuse for me to buy a bunch of them. And that was kind of the rabbit hole I went down. I don't do a lot of Bluetooth stuff now anymore, but that was kind of the origin of the channel.
It's interesting. I love the sort of tongue-in-cheek superficial or super review. It's maybe a little bit of an Easter egg, but you don't take your, let me rephrase that. You take your reviews very seriously and you present a lot of information in very great detail and with a lot of care. And it doesn't feel superficial.
Yeah, at some point things became less superficial than I had originally set out. Because literally, all right, my inspiration when I started the channel was unbox therapy. Right? I don't know if you've ever watched that YouTube channel. He just unboxes things and reacts to them. And I always liked his reactions, but a lot of the times he would unbox something and I didn't really have a good sense of it if he was actually excited about it. So I was like, oh, just do that same thing, but give it a score at the end of an unboxing, right? So superficially unbox it, use it for 5 minutes, and then give it a score. That eventually, that's obviously not what I do now. So at some point, I realized like, okay, I'm pouring a lot more time into this than what I originally thought I was going to be doing. So I don't know. I guess it's too late to change the name though.
It works. It's definitely, and I would say maybe you've transcended from superficial to superstar or superhero. I would say you have a lot of people who think that you're a superhero, including me.
I appreciate that.
Including me. I remember watching Unboxing Therapy years ago, and he opened one of those Deviolette. Do you remember those French eggs? And he had an orgasm. It was the craziest thing. I'm like, oh my God, this guy. I don't know if he's acting or if he really feels this way about the speaker, but I'm with him.
Yep. I think I remember the exact same video. Yeah, the DVLA. Yeah. Those things were cool looking.
DVLA. They were cool. They were like $2,000.
Yeah.
I did too. Yeah. See, probably people say the same thing about, your videos. They watch and they either want or don't want something. And that's a lot of pressure. How does it feel when you know that you have a lot of people and companies who are sending you product and hey, you know what? I'm just gonna just be honest. You did a pretty honest review about Kiwi Ears headphones that wasn't super positive, and I'm curious. How do you are you just giving it straight, or are you thinking this is going to be watched by the people who want an honest opinion, and it's also going to be watched by the people that are sending me product that keeps me in business to review stuff. How do you square all that?
Yeah, it's a tough thing. It kind of reminds me, actually, there was a thread that came up on HeadFi not too long ago. I don't know, someone was questioning my credibility for some reason, and I thought that it was actually a good opportunity for me to kind of lay out my ethics, my review ethics, because it's a thing that I develop and sort of have in the back of my head all the time when I'm dealing with companies sending me products or flying me out to Shenzhen, China, as it happened last year. And these are things that, I think the people watching reviews, viewers, should be concerned about, right? They should be thinking about what are the potential biases and things that are influencing the reviewer, and they should have a level of scrutiny, and that's totally fair. I guess it also kind of reminds me of, and I apologize if I'm going too far down a tangent on this, but there's also some, different opinions about should reviewers use affiliate links, for example, right? It's now you have kind of a conflict of interest, and they're not wrong, right? I do use affiliate links for the record, but they're not wrong that in some sense, I am kind of incentivized to tell somebody, yeah, you should totally buy this thing and use my link in the description down below so I make 5% of or whatever. But for me, I've been able to, let's just focus on the affiliate links thing. For me, I've been able to kind of square that in that, I actually don't care if you click my links. sure, I'm incentivized too, but really what's more important to me is just to make sure that I have the trust of the viewer. Because if I was just optimizing for clicking affiliate links, one, I wouldn't be reviewing hi-fi stuff, to be honest. Like, if you mentioned that video that I had previously published at like 250,000 views, that kind of stuff does more views and did a lot more for me in terms of affiliate revenue. When I was reviewing iPhones, which is something I reviewed at one point, got around 1 million views. But I don't review that stuff anymore because it's not interesting to me. But also, again, kind of to the point, like my goal is to build trust with the audience and to make sure that I'm building up a brand that SuperReview means something to people, that they're going to get my honest opinion. And in the case of dealing with companies like, let's say, Kiwi Ears sending me a bunch of headphones, yeah, to some extent, like I am dependent on Kiwi Ears or Linsoul in this case sending me product to review. And yeah, I guess in some ways, like I am incentivized to then be positive about it because I think that that's what the company wants. Although I think Linsoul is generally pretty good about just like wanting feedback about products rather than saying like we need a positive coverage of this. But anyway, I understand how this could be, what people assume are conflicts of interest and stuff that are going on in your head. And I guess even beyond that too, there's another aspect of this that I think about, and probably even I think about more, to be honest, than like the company stuff, is like the people building it. It's like, and this is honestly something I kind of struggle with a lot of like these independent builders that are like building headphones, or smaller companies making more boutique stuff. It's like, I know the people, and like being critical about something like that feels bad just more on a personal level, much more so than like any sort of incentives about, monetary incentives or worrying about getting product. So that kind of stuff is probably honestly like the bigger struggle that I deal with. And obviously I try to deal with it. And it's kind of up to the viewer, in my opinion, to kind of make up their mind on if I'm dealing with it appropriately, right? Does the viewer, in the end up trusting what I'm saying, and not just because like I'm a good salesman or I'm a good liar. Sorry, my chickens are going nuts behind me. But
your chickens?
Yeah, I've got chickens, and it's a little bit warm here, and we don't have AC, so I've got the window open. So if you hear chicken noises, I apologize.
Oh, the chickens are outside the window.
Yeah, they're not inside the room.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess that's kind of a long-winded way to say that, yeah, there are some, sort of mental conflicts, but mostly it really is just, it all comes back to the audience trust. And that to me is the priority. Mm-hmm. And if I get a product, to review that I don't love, and maybe I know that it's going to make things complicated somewhere else, either I just won't review it, or I'll be honest about the product, because that's what ultimately matters, not only just for me, but also I think long-term for the industry, right? I think we're building a hobby.
I think it's even more than just a hobby, it's a community. And I think maybe you touched on that a little bit, that the way you speak about a product affects people's feelings. Mm-hmm. And that could be a difficult thing to sort of square, I can imagine. One of the things that you've done that I think is truly incredible, I believe that really there are just a few people especially in the IEM space, but certainly in the IEM headphone space, that have contributed as much as you have. You created Squiglink, which sort of took Crinical's, measuring his like graphing thing to like the next level. Can you tell me a little bit about like how did you come up with Squiglink? Did you come up with the name Squig? Like, I love that it's called a squig and everyone calls it a squig now. And then, maybe just tell me a little bit about how the whole squig thing got started.
Yeah, sure. So I guess just to start, like I feel bad taking much credit for it, because a lot of the code base, right, the core technology that supports it was developed by Crinical and a developer named Marshall. So shout out to them up front. But yeah, Crinical had been using that graph tool on his website, and I used it all the time, loved it. but also I kind of hated it because he had it like embedded in like an iframe in the middle of a page that was surrounded by a bunch of ads. And if you tried using
I remember.
Yeah, if you tried using it on a phone, it was not very good. And so at some point I had decided I wanted to.
I think you had to pay too. Like if you wanted like more features or to unlock some things, like you had to pay for it.
Yep. Yeah, you did. I did. I paid for it. I was fine with that. But but yeah, I understand a lot of people didn't want to pay for it. And I guess even on that point, like even if I did pay for it, and I did, it would like log me out all the time, which was a pain in the butt. But anyway, sorry, this is not about ranting. But those are kind of my experiences with the tool. I think, I guess you're saying that's, not just my experiences. So that was part of it. But also part of it was I had gotten my own coupler. I was interested in measuring IEMs, and I wanted to visualize them the same way that I was used to seeing them on Chronicle's website, because he was, the pioneer in this space. He was basically what I was aping. So I was measuring things. I forked his code because it was an open source project, and I was just running it locally on my computer. And then I guess people on Discord maybe were like asking me for the links or like the screenshots or whatever. So I did end up like throwing it up on a website. Squig, by the way, I did not invent the term squig. People were calling them squigs and squiggles. Squiggly lines is, where it comes from.
I just think of Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley.
Oh,
I don't know if
I'm not familiar.
Old enough. You're probably not old enough to remember.
I'm gonna type that in, Squiggy.
Okay.
He looks vaguely familiar.
Laverne and Shirley.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The old guys who watch this, the three old guys they'll remember.
Nice. The other people with the gray in their beard.
That's right.
But Squiglink, the name Squiglink came about because it was combining squig. But one of the features that I added into the main CrinGraph code base was a feature that I had always wanted, which was updating the URL so that you can share, like I'm looking at these two IEMs next to each other and share that URL with somebody else so they can click on it and see exactly what you're doing. Right? That was a feature I added into the software. And so for me, squig.link just kind of, it made sense. And so that's kind of how the name came about. Now, that's only like part of what Squiglink is, right? Part of it is I forked CrinGraph. I updated the UI so that you could share links. I made it mobile friendly. I did a number of things like that, but honestly, I think what made Squiglink was that once I started doing it, there were a number of other reviewers who were also interested in doing it. And so I think the first one I helped out was actually Precog Vision, just because we're friends IRL. He lives pretty close to me.
Oh yeah, man, I love that guy. He's he's great. He's the one who did the Mirai, right? The Dunu. Yep. The Dunu Mirai. Yeah. Beautiful IEM.
Yeah, exactly. And so I helped him set up his own Squiglink website, basically just forking what I was doing. He didn't have web hosting of his own, so I was like, okay, I can set you up. And then I had, at that point, a number of other reviewers would start reaching out to me, and like at that point, like my intention was I was just saying, hey, I can help you set this up on your own web server, but a lot of them just didn't have their own web servers. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll set you up on my server. And so it just kind of ended up being like this home for other reviewers to start publishing frequency response graphs. And then at that point, we had a dozen or half a dozen different Squiglink websites. I think the feature that I added to it that really kind of tied it all together was like the global search. So you can just go in, search CA audio, and see all of the frequency response graphs that anyone has measured of CA audio stuff. And that kind of just like opens up the world. And like now squig.link is, the place where you can find a measurement of pretty much anything out there.
It's kind of amazing. How many measurements do you think you have?
I mean, me personally, or just on Squiglink in total?
No, I think maybe on the Squiglink in total.
That's a good question. I feel like I looked it up recently. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna make up a number, but it sounds right. So like, this is tentative, but I don't know. It's in like the 5,000+ different products measured.
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool. And obviously, as products keep coming out, just more and more, almost daily, it feels like.
Right.
What can you learn from a graph, and what can't you learn from a graph?
That's a big question. And there are people out there who hate squigs, right? And maybe with some good reason, because I think some people can be a little bit obnoxious about them. But I like them because I find them useful, right? I find them useful for narrowing down what I want to hear. There's 1,000 new IEMs just came out today. Not entirely true, but there are probably literally hundreds of them coming out every year, right? Most people are only going to get a chance to listen to one or two of them every year. So how do you decide which ones to go out of your way to try and hear? Either go to an audio show and find them, which is a very small percentage of people ever do that, or make a blind buy online and hope that it ends up being the thing that you want. So when you get good at reading frequency response graphs, you can do, I think, a very good job of narrowing down that, let's say 1,000, let's say 500 new IEMs in a year. You can narrow it down to like 20 or 30 that I think are going to have a very high % chance that that's going to be what you're into. Does it tell you everything about the sound? I don't think it does. Well, let me say it maybe another way. I think how much we can learn from frequency response graphs is limited by two things. There's like the technology that we're using to measure it, right? Like we're using, I'm looking around me to see if I have it in arm's reach. We're using pretty basic, technology for measuring these little couplers here. And these are limited, right? We have like the newer 5128 rigs that are more advanced in some ways, but they cost tens of thousands of dollars.
$70,000.
Is it that much?
I think. Yeah, there's 70, maybe even more at this point.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So most people don't have those.
And it takes like 6 months minimum to get, like if you order it and you spend 70 grand, you don't even get it for half a year.
That's wild. So
anyway,
so we're limited by.
I digress.
No, it's all good. It sounds like you have a firsthand experience trying to track one down. But yeah, so we're limited by the technology. But even if we all had 5128s, like even that's limited. Either because there's going to be something better developed eventually, but also because it's just like, it's an approximation, right? It's like based on averages of humans, and we as individual humans are not averages exactly. So that's kind of a limitation. But then even if you assume that we were able to collect perfect data, there is now kind of an interpretation challenge, right? It's like we're all kind of looking at frequency response graphs and we're doing our best to make predictions about what we're going to hear, right? That's kind of the goal. Is you get data, you make a prediction about what something's going to sound like, and you're trying to predict this is going to be something I will like. We're not very good at that right now. I'll be honest. Like I said, I think you can narrow down 500 down to about 20 or 30. So that's actually already very useful. But it's also not so useful that you narrow down that 20 to 30 and say, okay, yeah, it's absolutely worth me spending $1,500 on this one because it will be exactly what I want. You still need to hear it for yourself.
Thinking about graphs and you being someone who has looked at thousands of squigs and you can identify, I know Clinical is this way too, like you can look at a squig and you just know, like, I'm going to like this, I'm not going to like it, or it's going to sound like this, and you put it in yours and it's probably going to be pretty close. Are there ever tunings that surprise you? And do you think that like every tuning has been discovered?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There was a conversation we were having on our Discord server. I want to say it was earlier this year, talking about frequency response graphs, and right, we're always comparing them to targets, and there is kind of a perception that the way that you decide if something is good or bad is like how close it aligns with the target, which I don't really subscribe to. I know I have like my own target, but for me, the target is more of like a reference to try and again make predictions about what it's going to sound like, rather than like a prescription. So I guess there's that angle on it, and I guess maybe the question was like, are there surprises? Right? Is that kind of the
yeah, like I'll give you an example. So I recently had a chance the ZGOT Horizon is new, and I listened to it and I'm like, I kind of fell in love with it. And I looked at the graph and I'm like, whoa, this is a really weird squig. Like, it's just not, if I had looked at it first, I for sure would have thought like, no way, I'm going to hate this, but I don't. And so I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think, is it dangerous sometimes to be too maybe invested in squigs? Do you think that there are squigs that are going to be developed, or tunings that are going to be developed, that are just unorthodox, that you're like, oh my God, like, this is really great? And maybe it's even more like, like it's like a tuning profile like Harman or IEF 2025 or Meta or something.
Yeah, definitely. And like a couple of IEMs that come to mind that have graphs that, if I looked at just the graph, if I was judging the IEM based on just the graph, I probably wouldn't care for it that much. Something like the Symphonia Meteor, if you're familiar with that one. Or
I am.
Or even this guy, right? The Campfire Audio Aura. I have this sitting on my table because it's one of my favorite IEMs, but the squig is weird, right? I would not look at the squig and think that's something I'm going to love. So that's a good example. I also, at CanJam, recently heard, and maybe you got a chance to hear it, the Volk Audio Etoile. Did you hear that one?
I didn't know. I didn't get to hear much. But I just to kind of touch on Campfire, like 8 years ago when you started, I feel like, and we'll get back to the Volk Audio,
sure.
But I think this is kind of important. Like, I feel like it was the Wild West. I've been listening to IEM since the 90s. I got my first pair of Etymotics and my customs in the, 2007 or something like that. So I've seen a lot of changes, and I think squigs really helped to sort of reduce the amount of weird tunings out there, because people are like, they could just look at a squig and be like, no, that's just weird. I don't even want to like look at it or try it. But Campfire has always sort of marched to the beat of a different drummer, and they seem to just keep trying new, interesting things. And, damn the squigs. And sometimes they have real gems.
They do. They do have some gems. Again, the Aura, I think, is a very good IEM. I will say also a lot of their IEMs I don't like in ways that I would say are predictable, which is not to say that they're bad. They're just not for me, right? A lot of people love their stuff. So, but there are things that I will hear, and then I'll go back and look at the frequency response graph, and I'll be like, yeah, that kind of checks out.
Yeah. So the Volk Audio, can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So the Volk Audio Etoile, to be honest, like this is not an IEM I had heard of before CanJam. I walked into the Bloom Audio booth and I was talking with Steve there, and he pointed me to that one. And I was like, all right, I'll check this out. And I'll be honest, I kind of have somewhat of a bias against Empire Ears IEMs. In fact, I got one of those things sitting here on my desk as well. Shout out to Precog for loaning me this one. Their IEMs, man, they are just so big and chonky, and they have insane driver flex, which just makes me not like them. And this was also true of the Etoile. So I picked it up, it's like, okay, it's big and chonky. I put it in my ear, it starts crinkling, and I hate that. So I was like, all right, whatever. And then I hit play. I was like, wow, this actually sounds really good. And then I later went on Squiglink, looked up a frequency response graph that I think was on Elise Audio. And I was like, wow, that looks weird. That looks like not something I would expect that I would love. But I could also in it kind of like start to see, and this is why, I mentioned like the interpretation is the big challenge. Like this is kind of like a community effort of like figuring out how to interpret graphs, because I see the graph, I'm like, oh, okay, I would not expect to like that. But then I can start to correlate the things that I'm hearing with what I see in the graph. And then hopefully with that, doing that repeatedly over time, you start to develop better predictions.
You mostly review in-ear monitors, but occasionally I see you do headphones. Do you think you'll ever get into like, I know you do like portable DAC amps and stuff. Like, do you have any interest in doing like the big stack desktop stuff, or have you done much of that?
I have not, and I probably will not. Even on like the portable space, like I just review DAPs because I like these, like I use them all the time. And my interest is more in like the realm of usability and user experience, stuff like that. And there's a lot of differentiation between the digital audio players in that sense. When it comes to desktop DAC amps, there are some that are doing like different things in terms of the user experience, but for the most part, they're all just kind of more or less the same product. And to me, they sound the same, right? This is, I know, a controversial point, and I'll just say like, my point of view is not that nobody can hear the difference between them. My point of view is that I've tried to hear the differences between them. I have heard the differences between them, but then I put myself in like a blind A/B scenario, and like those differences disappear. So for me, I have tried a bunch. In fact, at Can Jam, I spent all of Saturday just listening to different amplifiers because I was like, I want to put myself in the best possible scenario where I can actually hear a difference between these things. And I walked out of it thinking kind of the same thing. It's like, yeah, maybe there's something there, but it's just not to the degree that it's interesting for me. It's really splitting hairs, and to even some degree, like making things up or like convincing yourself of something, right? At least that's how I feel.
I think that blind testing is something that would serve this hobby well, but a lot of people are afraid of doing because there's a lot of confirmation bias. And, I love this. It's this Hartfield CU8 IEM, and I love the way it sounds. It's not the best tuned, but it's pretty good. But I love the way they look, and I love the way they feel in my ears, and they make me feel good when I'm using that or listening to music from them. And I think that we're all influenced to a certain extent by the aesthetics or the feel, or it's those types of things that are really hard to put a subjective or objective stamp on.
I think that's 100% right. And when you say that, like, some people will hear that and think that like you're diminishing that as like a conclusion, but I 100% agree with that. And I think that like that is not only not something to be like either embarrassed about or like feel like it shouldn't be influencing. Like, I love that stuff. Like, again, the Campfire Audio Aura, part of why I love this IEM so much is it's freaking beautiful. It feels fantastic, and it sounds pretty good. Like, honestly, I don't think it sounds like the best sounding thing I have, but it's one of my 5 favorite IEMs because of those things that you were talking about. Like, it's just a thing I want to use. And those are, in my opinion, like perfectly valid reasons to prefer one audio product over another. And if it, kind of leads you into then feeling like, oh, now this amplifier has more warmth or more soundstage, like, that's fine. There's no problem with that. I think the bigger challenge with the amp stuff is that all of the marketing is like not about that, right? It's not about how this thing makes you feel. It's about like the purity of the sound and like how it's unlocking these details. And like that's the stuff that I start to kind of roll my eyes at. It's like,
well, I love watching your reviews, and you have the waveguide series, which I really like, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's really more of a sort of tutorial. It's less about a review and more just about like the whys and the hows, and you get into theory and how you feel about things. And I love that. Like, you've done, you did one like how your star rating works, or like what different ear tip shapes, how different ear tip shapes change the frequency response in your ear canal, or how they change the way they feel. What's most important to least important in your chain. Like, those are some of the most valuable, and they're, frankly, they're kind of like, why didn't someone else think of that sooner? Like, I mean, they're really like, I don't want to say basic. It's just such like, it's knowledge that we all need to have in this hobby, and you explain it so well. And I encourage anyone who's watching this who hasn't seen those videos, even if you have, like, go back and rewatch them, because there's such valuable information there. Frankly, I hope that you keep making those types of videos along with your reviews, because they're so helpful to so many people.
Yeah, it's content I've honestly been wanting to do for a long time. But when you have like just a lineup of reviews to do, it's like harder to make time for doing that stuff. But basically about, 9 months ago, I started doing this YouTube stuff more closer to full-time. It's still not quite full-time for me, but I'm spending a lot more time doing it, which gives me the time to do stuff like that content, which is, okay, let's step back, let's stop, get out of the day-to-day review cycle, and just like the ranking the audio chain. That to me was like a good way of addressing kind of like the stack and amp, source stuff is like, okay, I'm gonna take for granted that you hear all these differences that you're describing, but can we agree at least that it's a much smaller effect than EQ. Can we agree that it's a much smaller effect than adding an impedance adapter that changes the frequency response of your headphone? And I think that is very useful for somebody. It would have been very useful for me getting into the hobby, and not knowing like how impactful is it that my audio is high res versus not high res. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
It took me years to kind of come to the conclusion. Well, I mean, I could have come to the conclusion immediately if I had more like confidence in my own ears, but like it took me years to come to the conclusion that it's just not something I care about.
Last question. Who wrote your theme song? Your closing theme song is so good.
Oh, nice. So the theme song is an AI generated song, but I did write the lyrics. So
okay. That's crazy. So you wrote the lyrics and then you did what, you used ChatGPT or something? Or?
Yeah, there's a service called Udio, Udio.
Udio.
Yeah. It's actually a really cool tool. And it's something I've been looking for a while, or I was hoping would exist. Because before that, I was using music by an artist named Bureaucratic. So if you go back to my older videos, like they're all using the same music because I found this artist, Bureaucratic, does really cool, like kind of lo-fi chill beats that was perfect for what I was going for in a YouTube video. And he made his content available for YouTubers, right? He has a license on his website that says, hey, you can use my content on your YouTube channel. Just make sure you credit me in the comments. We're all good. And I bought all of his music, so I paid for it as much as I could, and I was using it. But I would still run into copyright issues on YouTube because he would, do like a guest set on some other record labels thing, YouTube channel, and then they would start claiming his content on my videos. And so I was always struggling with these content ID claims, even though I had a license to use this stuff. And so I was just like, I could try and make theme song music, my own music. I've done some crappy rudimentary music making before, but it wouldn't be, I don't know. I never went down that rabbit hole. But I thought AI is getting good enough that it might be able to help me out with this. And so I know a lot of people have kind of mixed feelings, or maybe even not mixed, but just strong anti-AI feelings about AI stuff. But in my case, like it legitimately like helped me create something that I wanted to create, right? It's like, it was a tool for me in the same kind of way that like a digital camera is a tool for someone who's trying to take a portrait, right? No, they didn't paint it by hand. They used a digital camera. But it was nonetheless like letting them kind of express what they were trying to do. And in this case, it's an AI song that I wrote. I wrote the lyrics for it, and then just sat down at Udio and plugged in a bunch of different prompts until I got something I started liking, and then kind of, you ride the wave of ChatGPT-esque prompts, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's, it's such a good song. I love it. I'm going to listen to it when we're done recording this video. It's funny. I don't want to get too in the weeds about things, but like you reminded me that when my wife had a career as a photographer, shot mostly film and then switched to digital and then got out of the game. But like when that changeover happened, there was a real pushback. Like people were so anti-digital, and it was like, oh, this is fake, and like, you weren't really like, the colors are not real, and like you did this in Lightroom, you didn't do it, you weren't up at 5 a.m. getting eaten by mosquitoes taking this photo or whatever, and no one ever talks like that anymore. And I have a feeling that's probably what's going to happen with AI pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even that long ago. I know maybe a lot of the people watching us are, still teenagers and stuff like that, so they didn't live through that. But yeah, it was, 15 years ago, people were poo-pooing, digital photo editing and Photoshop, and now it's just like, you take it for granted. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Ride the wave. Hey, well, okay. I lied. I'm going to ask you one more question. What do you see as the future of IEMs or headphones? What's the next big innovation? And I promise this is the last question.
Right. Like if we define the hobby, or we define the future of audio as like the best sound quality, then yes, I do think that TWS and active systems is the future. Like that is where the best sound quality will be. In the same way that the best cars are electric cars now, right? They are faster, more efficient, better to drive than old manual cars. But I still don't want one. And for me, like if that is the future of the hobby, if like the wired stuff kind of goes away, I will probably lose interest in it. So I don't want to think of that as the future. I would like to think of the future of this hobby as just being in the ears of more people. And that's kind of part of what I've been trying to do with the waveguide videos, is like make audio a little bit more accessible to normal people who maybe audiophile is like a bad word for them, right? It's like, try to make this more accessible to new people, younger people, so that the future of the hobby is just more people doing it, not everything's Bluetooth and TWS.
Oh, I love that. You're like the Johnny Appleseed of our hobby, spreading those gems of wisdom left and right as you walk along.
Oh, that would be a great legacy.
Cool.
I can only hope.
That's right. Storybooks will be written about you. For sure. Well, Mark, thank you so much, Mark Ryan, for jumping on the YouTube here with me, and certainly looking forward to seeing you in Dallas at Can Jam, and hopefully anyone in the audience that is watching and is going to go to Can Jam Dallas or maybe New York. I don't know. Will you be at Can Jam New York City?
Probably. Good chance.
Yeah, probably good chance. Yeah. So find Mark. He's very approachable, and usually sitting in the lobby of the hotel measuring IEMs at 5 a.m. is where you'll find him.
Yep. Wake up early.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. This video is brought to you by Linsoul.com. Linsoul sells IEMs, headphones, amplifiers, digital to analog converters, cables, really just about anything you could want for personal hi-fi or even home hi-fi. Their prices are great, the quality is exceptional, and their customer service is really second to none. Check them out in the link below.